On every single Tyranid lore video I've ever posted, stretching back as far as 2015, there's been at least one subscriber that has commented and said, Games Workshop has made the Tyranids unbeatable. And they're right if you only skim the surface of the Tyranid lore, because whenever they're brought up, it's always through the perspective of one of the more cowardly or dramatic factions of the 40K universe, meaning either the Imperium, the Eldar, or the Tau Empire. I'm not saying that these factions are weak, I'm just saying that when you compare them to the gargantuan tendrils of the Tyranids, they will always be fighting at a significant disadvantage, and it's because of their empathy towards their own kind. In other words, they are always trying to preserve or defend their territory or populations, a concept completely foreign to the Tyranids who don't care about casualties or territory. But once you zero in on exclusively the Tyranid lore, you realize that there is a chink in their armor. In my opinion, there is one way that I can see the Great Devourer being destroyed, or at least pushed away from the Milky Way galaxy. And that's what we're going to talk about today in another episode of 40 Facts About the 40K Universe. If you're new to the channel, allow me to introduce myself. I am your host, Gersh1, and if you're interested in learning and exploring more of the strange and dark universe of the 41st millennium, consider subscribing to the channel. We post daily lore videos, and on top of that, we are celebrating November, an entire month dedicated to the Tyranids. So if you have any questions or suggestions about the Tyranids, please comment down in the comment section below, and if you like this new style of 40 Facts videos, consider launching a virus bomb at the like button. It won't kill off the Tyranids, but it will tell YouTube that you want to see more of our November lore videos, and you'll be helping me continue making these videos. But with all that said, let's get into 40 facts and lore on how to kill the Tyranids. Just like in one of last month's October videos where I showed you guys how the other major factions can get rid of the orcs, in this Tyranid extermination video, I want to start off by going over some of the more popular theories and methods on how to destroy the Great Devourer that sound really good, but are probably not going to work. Starting with a theory that I like to call the pit fight theory, named after the Magic the Gathering card that allows you to choose one of your creatures and have them fight any other creature. This will be the last MTG reference in the entire video, and I'm just doing that because I've been playing Magic for a while now. But the reason I call it this is because that is essentially what many proponents of this theory are doing. The two most popular factions used to fight the Tyranids are either the Greenskins or the Necrons. So they claim that if you took the Nids and threw them at the Orcs might be tough enough to wipe them out. I'm not going to go into detail as to why these two factions can't kill each other, because I covered it in the Orc Destruction video, but basically this has already happened, and it only served to strengthen both factions as the Hive Fleets grew larger because of the almost unending source of biomass from the dead Greenskins, and they grew tougher because of the constant war that they're providing. Now, others say that if the Silent King unified all of the dynasties, then the Necrons could kill off the Tyranids. First, let me point out that having all of the Necron dynasties unify after the Silent King set them free during the Great Sleep or after the Great Sleep, that would be nearly impossible, because throughout the entire war in heaven, all they did was bicker and fight each other, even when there was a bigger threat in the form of the old ones. But let's just say that they did accomplish unity. I have my doubts that there would be enough Necrons to defend the entire galaxy from the Tyranid swarm that, as far as we know, is larger than the galaxy itself. Let's remember that not all the Necron worlds made it through the Great Sleep, and there's already a lot of infighting even with the Silent King in the galaxy. I also have to mention that although the Hive Fleets avoid the Necrons, it doesn't mean that they can't dissolve living metal. If the Tyranid weapons can destroy Necron constructs, then they can destroy them in their reclamation pools. The real reason that the Great Devourer stays away from the Necrons is because there are juicier planets and species to devour out in the galaxy, so focusing on something that gives them near zero returns would only be done by the Tyranids if they are being attacked or they're truly desperate. So even though the Silent King is rumored to have returned because he saw the Tyranids in the void, now he has to convince the other Necron lords to stop what they're doing in trying to rebuild their empires and focus on this Tyranid threat that doesn't seem to even pay attention to them. Now we move on to the last faction that I've seen get thrown at the Tyranids, Chaos. Chaos might have the best potential in going toe-to-toe with the massive swarm of Tyranids invading the Milky Way galaxy based on the endless swarms that they can both call upon, but as more and more Hive Fleets pour in, the weaker the Chaos Gods become. Let's remember that each Hive Fleet possesses a shadow in the warp, and it's humanity that mostly fuels the Chaos Gods. So if the Tyranids continue to pour in and focus on consuming more and more biomass, there will be less psychic cattle for the Chaos Gods to slaughter, meaning that they'll get weaker. Chaos, on the other hand, is not making the Tyranids weaker. If anything, the Tyranids are learning how to manipulate the powers of the Immaterium. And I want to be clear that I'm not saying that the Great Devourer can then turn around and destroy these three factions. What I am pointing out is that if these factions fought each other, it turns into a stalemate. Now, since we're on the topic of the Tyranids facing off against the Chaos Gods, let's talk about the next Tyranid extermination theory that's been floating around the internet that I don't really think would work. I will call it the possession theory, because it claims that all or one of the Chaos Gods can simply take control of the Tyranids and either demonically corrupt them or push them away from the Milky Way galaxy. The big issue with this theory is that the task of corrupting a single tendril of a hive fleet is nearly impossible, let alone the entire swarm. We talk about just how difficult it is to corrupt the Tyranids in yesterday's Nurgle Tyranid lore video, but the gist of it is that even though you have bioforms that are corrupted by Nurgle's rot, or in possession of Khorne's weapons, it radically changes the creature, but at no point is the corrupted Tyranid actually venerating the Chaos Gods, because the hive mind doesn't give individuals complete free will, so there's no worship being done. What this means is that if the Chaos Gods want to possess the Tyranids, then they have to find a way to communicate with the collective consciousness of the entire swarm. A very, very difficult task. I like to visualize this concept in the real world like this. The Chaos Gods convincing a human to turn to chaos is like you trying to convince me to buy your army while we're standing face to face. Now the Chaos Gods trying to coerce the hive mind to turn to chaos is like you trying to convince me and every single person that watches this video, past, present, and future, to buy your army. It's nearly impossible for you to do that, and it's even crazier for the Chaos Gods to try to corrupt all of those bioforms. Next, let's talk about a theory I've seen used in a couple of Warhammer 40K fan stories that tries to work around the overpowered nature of the Tyranids by reverse engineering their DNA in order to control the hive mind. This control theory is very similar to the possession theory, but it removes the demonic element and replaces it with technology. The theory claims that there will be a time in the future where the Tau Empire or the Imperium cracks the code of the DNA of the Tyranids, and they will be able to create some form of mind control technology, whether that be biological or mechanical, that will override the powers of the hive mind and turn that power over to a wielder. It's like how Professor Xavier uses Cerebro to connect with all of the minds of the mutants, except it would be connecting with all of the minds of the swarm. This method would most likely fail because there hasn't been an entity strong enough to withstand the collective chatter of trillions upon trillions of bioforms. When psychers connect with the minds of individual captured bioforms in the current lore, they go completely mad, and they have to disconnect from the Tyranids or else die. Now imagine connecting to multiple tendrils of the swarm that, again, is as big as the entire galaxy. No being can do that. Now, for those that think that there can be some biological technology like a pathogen or a virus that can somehow alter or redirect the control of the Tyranids to a specific source, that theory is flawed because if Nurgle's chaotic diseases have a hard time infecting the Tyranids because the Tyranids just evolve around that pathogen, how could the hive mind not evolve around a man-made virus? It's just not possible. The chance of it working long enough to infect the entire swarm is very unlikely, not to mention that each individual hive fleet has a very different genetic makeup, so what will work for a hive fleet Kraken might not work for the hive fleet Behemoth. So now that we have debunked the majority of the extermination theories out there, let's get into the most probable method of killing off the Tyranids, the incarceration theory. Basically trap the Nids inside of a cage. We know that the Milky Way galaxy seems to be the only galaxy that has access to an alternate dimension called the Immaterium, and we also know that this place doesn't follow the rules of space and time, making it an endless and timeless expanse. This is the perfect cage that can trap the massive swarm of Tyranids. Before recent events, this theory wouldn't have worked because there are only a couple of warp portals open in the galaxy. It was the Eye of Terror and the Maelstrom. So luring the Tyranids into the Immaterium would be nearly impossible. But with the opening of the Great Rift, a massive warp gate the length of the galaxy just opened up, making it easier and faster to drive the many tendrils of the Great Devourer into the warp. We also know that for whatever reason the Nids seem to be attracted to the Astronomicon. This psychic lighthouse needs to be duplicated inside of the warp, possibly on a planet that gets launched inside of the warp, and with this bigger and brighter Astronomicon calling to all the Nids, the only problem left to solve is closing off the warp as soon as they're in. For that, we can turn to the Necrons, which have demonstrated their ability to disconnect real space from the warp, effectively closing off the Immaterium. The best part about this theory is that once the Tyranids are inside and the gate is shut, they will starve to death because no Hive Fleet, not even Hive Fleet Kronos, has the ability to consume the immaterial ether of the warp. So the warp doesn't even have to be shut for good. It simply needs to remain closed long enough for the Chaos Demons to kill off all of the biomass depraved Nids. Now, although simple to explain, the incarceration theory is very difficult to execute. It will require the cooperation of the Imperium to create a second Astronomicon and shut off the first Astronomicon while the Tyranids get inside, the Necrons to create a nexus of Blackstone pylons to close off the Great Rift, and then Chaos to keep the Nids busy while the gates are being closed, but this last role can also be fulfilled by other factions. There's also a second possible solution that doesn't involve Chaos at all. Instead, the Eldar can allocate a portion of the webway as a cage for the Tyranids. In this alternate method, the Astronomicon is created inside of a portion of the webway, kind of like Kamara, and the Nids are lured inside and then dispersed throughout this huge wormhole. The gates are then shut, and the Nids are trapped forever. The issue here is that this second method might take longer because there aren't as many portals to the webway as there are to the Immaterium. Either way, the Tyranids can be exterminated by incarcerating them inside of the warp. Now, I know this incarceration theory would be very difficult to pull off. Luring the Tyranids into the Immaterium or the webway would be very, very difficult, but it's one of those endgame scenarios, and it's the most probable endgame scenarios where, is Games Workshop ever going to try to do this? No, probably not. They're never going to try to get rid of a faction. But could it happen? Yeah, I really think that this is the most plausible method of killing off the Tyranids. But now I want to hear from you guys. Comment down in the comment section below. Let me know what your favorite or your best theory for destroying the Tyranids is. And then for the first 2 days that this video is posted, I'm going to be talking to you guys in the comment section below. So if you guys want to tell me your theories, or if you have questions about the Tyranids or suggestions, just comment down in the comment section below. I hope you guys are enjoying Nidvember. If you have more ideas, let me know what they are. And more Nid videos to come. I'm also starting a Gene Stealer cult army. It's for sure now. I'm doing it. But that video is probably not going to get posted until the end of the month. So expect that soon. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Smash the like button because it really does help out the channel. And if you've made it this far, thank you for listening. Hopefully more great Nid content to come. With that said, this was Gersh1 with One Mind Syndicate signing out.